Hi everyone! So we are smack dab in the middle of holiday gift giving season, whatever you celebrate, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Festivus, whatever. Kind of now is the time of year that people are giving each other lots of presents. So I wanted to do I was gonna say quick, but I think calling it quick would be hasty, knowing my tendency to go really long in videos like this. Hang on, I must yell at my cat. Leah, I wanted to put together a gift giving guide for the people in your life, specifically obviously books, suggestions for what you can get for certain people in your life. I initially thought, okay, so for your mom, for your dad, for your sister, for your brother, but everybody is different. Like my mom's not gonna wanna read something that your mom would wanna read, and my sisters are both very different, so I wouldn't get, well, sometimes I would, but for the most part I would choose something different for them, especially if I wanted to kind of personalize it. So I've come up with some different categories that the people in your life may fall under. My problem was that I kept coming up with more and more categories. So I've kind of narrowed it down to about 7 or 8 categories. Okay, so the first one is the activist. For the person in your life who has a cause or is looking for a cause and is trying to get their voice out there and thinks it's really important to be heard, which I think a lot of people are really getting passionate about in this day and age. So here are your books for those people. The March Trilogy, which are the autobiographical account of the civil rights movement by John Lewis, Andrew Aydin and Nate Powell. Be Fierce, Stop Harassment and Take Your Power Back by Gretchen Carlson. This is a nonfiction book that kind of breaks down sexual harassment and abuse in professional settings and what you can do to speak out and fight back against it. It's Your World, the Chelsea Clinton's nonfiction book for kids that kind of breaks down different areas in the world. I've talked about it in a past video, but it talks about the economy, it talks about education, it talks about how women and girls are treated around the world, talks about poverty, things like that, and profiles different young people who have decided that they wanted to change things, and then gives kids tools and ideas for how they can go about helping to start to affect change in their lives and in the world around them. The Young Trailblazers is a board book about famous women who were trailblazers, and so it's a great thing for the baby activist in your life or the young activist in your life. The second category that I've got is the Percy Jackson fan, or just the fan of Greek mythology in general. I'll start with Greek mythology, then we'll veer off. The George O'Connor's The Olympians graphic novel series is excellent. He is covering just about every single god in the Greek pantheon, and he does it in a really, really neat way, retelling mythology and stories that I'd heard before, but also touching on stories that I hadn't heard before and kind of giving all of the gods kind of a new voice and like a fresh perspective. That's really cool, and his art is fabulous. The Odyssey by Gareth Hinds. This is another graphic novel, and I think it's a really great adaptation of that classic tale, told in a way that, because it is a graphic novel, you get the illustrations and the pictures alongside the text, and I think that will really help people who are struggling through maybe the original text. Speaking of the original text, there is a new translation out that I haven't read yet, but I've been hearing a lot of really great things about, so that would be another great one as well. So moving on from Greek mythology into Chinese mythology, I did a video about it already, but it is definitely worth mentioning again here. The Epic Crush of Genie Lo by F.C. Yi, which is based in Chinese mythology and is really fascinating and a lot of fun. And then also Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology. So if you know someone who's reading Percy Jackson, they're also reading Magnus Chase, and they're getting into Norse mythology. Neil Gaiman has written and kind of rewritten a bunch of the original Norse mythology, and it's amazing because it's Neil Gaiman. And then you get to find out all about Ragnarok, which is really different than the movie Thor Ragnarok. I was reading Norse mythology when I went and saw the movie, and I was like, this is different. I mean, obviously, it's based on a comic. All right, our next category is the rebel. For the rebel in your life, the person who doesn't do things like everybody else. So first, I've got Celia Perez's The First Rule of Punk, which I have talked about in a video before, and just like Genie Lo, is definitely worth saying again for your like beginning punk kid or rebel who doesn't like to do things the way that everybody else does. That's a good way to start. The Veronica Speedwell series by Deanna Raybourn, starting with A Treacherous Beginning and then A Perilous Undertaking is the second one. So Veronica Speedwell is a woman unto herself. She is a Victorian adventuress and she is a butterfly hunter. And she kind of makes up her own rules in a time when that was not the norm for women. And she, in these books, she solves a lot of crimes and she is awesome. Oh, a nonfiction one, the Empress Dowager Cixi, the concubine who launched modern China. This is a nonfiction book about kind of the last real empress, emperor ruler of China before it was kind of colonized. It is fascinating. It is written by a Chinese woman, and it is a different perspective than you will hear about in a lot of history books, because history books are not often kind to women who are rulers. But Empress Cixi was was one of the concubines of the Emperor of China, and she kind of moved up to his second, into placement as his second wife, because she was the mother of his heir, his son, and she and the first wife were really responsible for things happening in the country after the emperor's death, and she had a lot to do with changes within the government and the way that China was run, and she is a fascinating character, and I loved that book. The next category I have is for those who have been bitten by the travel bug. My first one, I have talked about it several times, and I will always talk about it because I kind of just want to reread it right now, is 80 Days, the story of Nellie Bly and Elizabeth Bisland and their race around the world. If you don't want to just get on a steamer or a train as soon as you're done reading this book, or as soon as you start reading this book, I don't know who you are. I mean, I probably don't know who you are. I don't know who's watching all these videos. But it is amazing, the routes that they took and how it was possible for them at this time to travel around the world in less than 80 days to beat Phileas Fogg's fictional record in a time that it was just getting to be easier to travel quickly, but it was still not very easy. And kind of the fame and the fortune and the notoriety it brought and how that affected these women's lives. So that's a good one. This one is a young adult fiction book. It's The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, and I loved this book so much. It might be one of my favorite books of 2017. I laughed, I cried, there was a lot of angst, there's travel. It starts in England, it goes to Paris, then it goes to Spain. I don't want to ruin anything, but there are pirates involved at some point. It does everything. And it kind of made me want to be a dissolute, noble person in the past. It was great. It was so good. Okay. I love that book. Okay, these are graphic novels. They are Compass South and its sequel, The Knife's Edge by Hope Larson and illustrated by Rebecca Mock. So these are, this is a story about a brother and sister who are twins, whose father has gone missing, and they only have a knife, a pocket knife, and a watch that are like the key to a secret, and so they're trying to hunt him down and find him and try to find the secret of their past. And to do so, they must sneak aboard ships or find work on ships. And the sister cuts her hair and pretends to be a boy, and they get split up, and there are other twins, and there are far-flung islands, and there's sailing around the world, and it's so good. It's so good. Yes. And then another one that I read a couple years ago. Gosh, was it a couple years ago? Maybe it was last year. So it's phenomenal. A hesitant adventurer's search for wonder in the natural world. And this is about a new mother who decides that she needs to be able to share the world with her son. She needs to go out and explore it more. So she has a goal to go see like these natural wonders in the world. So she sees the monarch migration in Mexico, and she sees the northern lights, and she sees lunar eclipses, and she goes to an island off of South America where lightning strikes there more than anywhere in the world. She tries to see the coral bloom in the Great Barrier Reef and lots of other things, and kind of her experiences in that and how it expands her worldview and her appreciation of life and of being a mother. My next one is for the romantic in your life. We all have a romantic in our life. So my first suggestion is An Extraordinary Union by Alyssa Cole. This is a romance set during the Civil War, and it has spies in it. So they're both working for the Union, obviously, and we have a Scotsman and a black woman who's a former slave who is undercover as a slave I think they're in Maryland, in like a senator's house, and they fall for each other. And so it's all the intrigue of, you know, being spies during the Civil War, but also trying to deal with their attraction to each other and the obstacles that are in place for them. It's so good. So good. And then I have The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albert Holly. And I mean, I just should throw in Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda as well. I did a video about The Upside of Unrequited, so you could go watch that for more. But these books are so sweet, and I love them. And I think they're so good. And The Upside of Unrequited just was literally like a little door into my head as a teenager, basically. Less crushes, but a lot of the other stuff. When Dimple Met Rishi is another adorable YA romance set at a coding camp in Silicon Valley, or on a college campus. And Dimple and Rishi are sort of matchmaked by their parents as potential marriage prospects for each other. Only Dimple doesn't know this is going to happen, and Rishi does, and she's not cool with that. But they are thrown together on this campus, and sparks actually do fly. So it's really cool. Then I had a graphic novel. There's a bunch of graphic novels that I think would have good romances, but I was looking through my Goodreads list, and this one popped out at me. It's called Princess Ever After, and it's just this adorable kind of middle grade graphic novel where a princess saves another princess, and they have to defeat a sorceress who's trying to get rid of one of the princesses, and they become friends, and then they become closer, and it's so cute. It's so wonderful. I could go on and on about romances. I like a good romance. But we don't have time because I've already been doing this for 18 minutes. Okay, my next one is for the optimist in your life. I think that's just a natural segue from the romantic, but your optimist might be a little different. So I just have a couple here because I want to keep this a little brief, but The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl in any iteration. So the graphic novels by Ryan North, I believe, and especially the novel by Shannon Hale. Like, if you just want a feel good, you just smile the whole time you're reading it, then definitely that. Then Lucky Penny by Ananth Hirsch. Penny is just the most unlucky girl ever, and she ends up living in secretly, like, squatting in a storage facility but like nothing gets her down, and she just kind of spends the whole time like just trying to get herself out of all these horrible things that happened to her. And yeah, just lots of optimism there. Basically anything by my girl Natalie Lloyd. So A Snicker of Magic and The Key to Extraordinary. These books are set in like these like adorable little towns where weird stuff happens and it's all magical and wonderful, and I love it. So I think that's about it. I could go on and on for ages, but I want to wrap this up so that it's under the 20-minute mark. If you have any other kind of requests or kind of specific tastes that you would like some more help with, put it in the comments below. I would be happy to address it. It's what I do all day at work. And yeah, share this wherever you think people might need help finding the right book for a tricky person for their holiday or your birthday. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. I'd like to do this again. I really like this kind of format and this kind of prompt. And if you liked this video and got anything out of it, give it a little thumbs up. Oh, since you stuck around for just a second, I've got one last one. It is very, very specific, and this is for people who love LGBTQ spy books. I've got, I'm in the middle of it right now, but Amberlow by Laura Elena Donnelly. So let me just tell you that the book opens with two quotes, one from Cabaret and the other one from Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And I've talked before about my feelings about Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And the other one would be the love interest, which I have touched on in a video before, but it is spies who are supposed to get a mark to fall for them and instead fall for each other. If you can think of more LGBTQ spy books, please send them my way because I would love that. And yeah, this is really it for me.